I have a group of friends that I've known since even before we started school. Our parents were close friends, so we always knew what was going on with each other. And because of COVID, we started talking even more. Until the summer of last year, when one of my closest friends disappeared. She cut all contact and wouldn't reply to text or calls. Not even her parents would mention anything that happened with her. But late last year, she reappeared again and started talking to us. But she never mentioned anything that happened to her, and she tried to be very nonchalant about it. But then she told us she was in a psych ward for almost 2 weeks. And she never mentioned it after that. It was really strange. She was always such a bubbly person who always talked about everything that happened to her. When someone breaks a bone or gets a stomachache, everyone is willing to talk about it. Even in my own family, when someone has a heart disease or cancer, everyone knows everything about it. But when dealing with mental illness, people are not as open about it, and are not as so open about communicating with people who have it. At the time when my friend disappeared, I was reading a semi-autobiography where the main character goes through a lot of major mental issues. And when we moved to Bali, I finished that book, but I had no idea what to do for Quest. And the thought of my friend disappearing and the book I just finished still fresh in my mind, I had the idea: how is mental illness represented in media, and how it might be stigmatized because of it? So I started watching movies, and I came to a conclusion that most movies can be separated into two groups. Some movies make out the main character to be dangerous and violent, like most villains in 80s slasher movies, or like Arthur Fleck in The Joker and Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs. And the other half shows the characters to be genius because of their mental illness, like John Nash in A Beautiful Mind and Beth Harmon in A Queen's Gambit. Watching movies is definitely the best part of my quest, but I had to dig deeper. Research shows that we get most of our information on mental illness through the mass media, like movies, films, TV shows, and books. But because of this representation, our perception of it can become skewed, and we might start avoiding, fearing, and discriminating against people with mental illness. But this is not only limited to adult films, it also includes children's media as well. In 2007, by a study conducted by Otto Wall, they examined 269 hours of 527 TV shows for children under the age of 14. That aired on major TV channels like ABC, NBC, Cartoon Network, and Nickelodeon. And they found that within 3% of programs, characters with mental illness were shown to be excluded, ostracized, and because they were violent and aggressive. In a study in 2002 by Wilson et al. About kid shows in New Zealand, they found that half of the characters were shown to be comedic relief, behaving illogically and irrationally. And the other half were violent and aggressive, and often labeled as mad, insane, and crazy. But adult shows also have a similar problem. Even in shows that do have good representation, like A Beautiful Mind, where John Nash has schizophrenia, it shows schizophrenia to be much more complex than just hallucinations and violence, and it shows for a hope of recovery. And many critics say that it is a great representation. In newer shows like Monk and Perception, the characters have OCD and schizophrenia respectively, where they have a job, a good relationship with their family, and a good life. But some critics, like Simonton in 2017, would say that because of these mental illnesses, it makes it out to be Wilson et al. No, Simonton said in 2017 because of these mental illnesses, because of their mental illness is why the characters might be a genius. Let me ask you a question. How many people do you know have a mental illness? According to the NIMH, 1 out of every 5 people have a mental illness. And according to the National Institute of Mental Health, it says that 20 million USD adults have had at least one major depressive episode, with 100 million cases of depression in China and 450 million cases worldwide. According to the DSM-5, a handbook used to classify mental illness by most medical professionals and the legal system, depression is an illness. But most people see it as a vulnerability and weakness. Because of People often don't get diagnosed because of this. And so people, and the only representation we get of mental illness is through media. But media often exaggerates this. But not everything is so black and white. Like in the movie Sopranos on HBO, it shows Tony Sopranos, a family man working in the waste business, seeking out therapy for his panic attacks and what later ends up being deeper psychological issues. But what I forgot to mention is that Tony Sopranos is a mafia boss, and seeking out therapy could have been a death sentence during his time. When I started Quest, I didn't know anything about the subject, but it turned into a journey of discovery for me. I have a deeper understanding of it now, and about the representation of mental illness in media, and plan to take further action. I want to share by sharing awareness about it, and hoping that people will take a chance to learn about it and how it's stigmatized and often discriminated, and how it affects people in our society. And I hope my quest will inspire people to question the representation in media and to destigmatize and normalize the conversation about mental illness. I want to thank my teachers like Ibu Angie, Ibu Laura, and all the other Quest teachers for pushing me forward with my quest. And I'd like to thank my parents for giving me the opportunity to study in Green School. And I would like to finish off this quest with a presentation with a quote from Glenn Close. What mental health needs is more sunlight, more candor, and more unashamed conversation. Thank you.